Fairy tales. The Nutcracker and the Mouse King. Once upon a time, there lived a sister and a brother, Clara and Fritz. One snowy Christmas morning, there was a knock on the door. It was Uncle Drosselmeyer with the Christmas presents for children. "What do I have for little Clara and Fritz? Which one of you wants to open it?" It was a doll, but not a usual one. It was a soldier and also a nutcracker. His mouth was wide open so that his big jaws could fit a nut in between. Honestly, not really a very beautiful toy, but at least the soldier looks funny, thought Clara. But her brother didn't like the toy at all. "It is so useless, except for when you break nuts." He took the toy and began to crack the nuts. He tried to break open an extra hard nut, pressing the cracker until it broke. The poor soldier was left with half of his mouth and looked even worse now. "Why did you do it?" cried Clara. She left the nutcracker under the Christmas tree, but she thought he would feel lonely, so she fell asleep among the presents. At midnight, the clock rang and it woke up Clara. The whole floor was covered with mice. The girl turned around to run away, but she hadn't made 2 steps, and she saw the mice. They all were dressed in uniforms like soldiers. They were led by a terrible creature with heads with golden crowns. It was the Mouse King. Clara wanted to run, but she saw that the Nutcracker was leading an army of toys behind him. Both leaders was spectacular. The mice soldiers surrounded the Nutcracker, but Clara took one of her slippers and threw it after the Mouse King. He ran and hid in a wall. His soldiers were scared of the giant doll and her slippers. It was victory. The toys started cheering and dancing. They celebrated all night, and in the morning they all went into the boxes. In the morning, Uncle Drosselmeyer was already waiting for Clara in the kitchen, with a nutcracker in his hands. The doll was as good as new. The uncle told her the story about the Nutcracker and the Mouse King. One Christmas, mice cracked into the palace and ate all food which was meant for the king's lunch. The king ordered to create mouse traps and to lay them all over the kitchen. Many mice were trapped. The Mouse King yelled, "I will make you pay for what you did by turning your daughter's beautiful face into something so ugly you wouldn't want to look at." The king and the queen were furious when they saw what had happened to their child. The king announced that the boy who succeeds to turn back the beautiful face of his daughter will marry her. The king knew that the princess should eat the hardest nut. Many boys tried, but none was as strong as to break the nut with his hands. Until one day, Drosselmeyer's nephew came to visit his uncle. The old man asked him to try his luck too. So the boy put the nut between his jaws and pressed them until the nut finally cracked. At that moment his face turned ugly. He became the Nutcracker. He succeeded to cure the princess, but the princess refused to marry someone who was so ugly. The king had to agree that such a beautiful girl cannot marry an ugly, funny-looking boy. That night, Clara couldn't fall asleep. Not long after, she heard the voice of the Mouse King. "You will give me your sweets, or I will eat the head of your beloved doll." She immediately took out all the sweets, but the Mouse King asked for more. The sweets were running out, and Clara started crying. The Nutcracker heard her cry and ran to find her. When he arrived, he waited no more. He beat off the Mouse King's heads, one by one. "I will keep the Nutcracker forever," heard her uncle's voice. She was surprised to see that Uncle Drosselmeyer wasn't alone. His nephew was with him. He was no longer ugly, but handsome, with a lovely smile. When Clara said she would love the Nutcracker, she had broken the spell, and now her brave guard was standing right in front of her. When their eyes met, they knew that one day they would be married and they would live happily ever after. The end. Write me please. I'm waiting for your letters. Subscribe to my channel.